Welcome to video 3 of my Codesys YouTube series, showing you all the different features and how to work with Codesys. Thanks again for joining me, and we are going to move on to basic instructions, basic instructions, and set resets, and of course how to do branches, things like that. So a couple things. First of all, how to do a branch. So you'll notice we have our basic program here, and the basic program we were using in the first two lessons. And if I scroll down, I'll be able to actually put in a branch, start putting in branches. So let's assume for a second I want to actually put a branch around this push button here. A couple of things. If I wanted to assume for a second I wanted to actually put a second branch, just a branch with a contact and another coil. So what I could do is I could drag and drop the branch down, like that, for example. I could move this instruction around, and then from there, if I want to, I can actually go and put a contact in like that, and let's say I wanted to actually put a coil at the end of that. So that's one form of a branch, would be to branch across to another coil, almost giving you basically that's another rung. It can be in that fashion, or it could have been at that point there. Okay, so that's definitely one way to do a branch. Let me delete this, highlighting and deleting those instructions. And what if I wanted to actually put a branch around this push button? Just around the push button, there's a couple of different ways to do that. We can use the parallel over on the right here. We'll see the parallel contact and the parallel negated contact. So let me try first of all the parallel contact. I'm going to drag and drop that contact down, and you can see it'll actually put that contact down for us with a branch. And again, if we want, we can add to that branch. I can add more instructions to that branch and so on. Or if I want, let's say I'm going to back up hitting Control Z to get back to that point. And what if I wanted a negated branch? I wanted to put a contact with a negated branch. I could do that. Now, let's say I wanted some other function, whatever it is, a timer, counter, or any of the other instructions. I can go and put that down into that branch and go from there, right? Okay, so let me back up. So that's a couple of ways to do a branch. There is actually one remaining way, and that is the branch start and end. And what that's going to allow me to do is I'm going to highlight an area that I want to actually put a branch, and then I can actually drag this across to pick the starting location of my branch, and then drag across and hit my ending location. And you can see it gives me the same as a parallel contact. But the point is that could be anywhere within your ladder logic where you could actually make that branch. Okay, so that's just using branches. And again, there's the instructions down on the right hand side in the toolbox, but you should also be aware of the instructions that are along the top here. You'll notice that there's a series of instructions all along the top, and you should pay attention to each one and go in and start using either the ones up from there or down in the toolbox. Okay, with that in mind, let's take a look at a set and a reset. Set and reset coil. So I'm going to actually right-click my rung here, my network, and I'm going to insert a network below, and I'm going to put another contact down, and I'm going to actually go and use the set instruction. So I'm going to drag and drop the set instruction out, and of course you can see it is a little bit different than our standard coil. So let me go and I'm going to use push button 2 here, and then actually I'll just do push button 2 like that, and then I'm going to actually go and do light 2, and what's interesting is the set and the reset instruction. The name is very descriptive. When you set, you're setting or writing a 1 to an address. That could be an internal address like we have here, light 2, or it could be physically a real I/O point. But this is basically when this rung goes true, when this network goes true, we are going to end up with a set on that address. I'm going to go and put the companion reset down too, and I'm going to insert network below, and I'm going to add in a contact again, and use a different push button altogether, push button 3 this time, and make that address, and then of course do a set or a reset instruction. I'm going to drop that down, but you'll notice that I'm going to use the same address here. So I'm setting or resetting the same address based on the state of these instructions. So let me go ahead and log in and download that. I'm going to log in with the download, and then it's going to go and compile and test and see if there's any errors. There isn't, of course, and then it's going to take me online. Now, of course, we are stopped, so I'm going to go and hit the start. And again, we're in the simulator, so a lot of the things we're going to do going forward we're going to perform in the simulator just because it's easier. So again, I'm going to go and toggle. So I'm going to double click push button 2. It'll set it true, and when I right click it, I can write the values. You'll notice that it's setting or turning on that address. But again, we'll really only, that's maybe not any different than our network above here. Let's turn off push button 2, and that's where we see the difference. So when I write a 0 on push button 2, you'll notice light 2 stays on. You should notice that the blue indicator is on in both of these networks, even though the network is not turned on. Physically, there is no on state on continuity on the network. The actual address is held on, and that's how a set and a reset works. Essentially, what you're looking at is when the rung goes true on the rising edge of the rung going true, it's going to turn on that it's going to write a 1 to that address, and that address, the blue indicator, actually indicates the state of that address. Okay, so let's reset now, and this is where it gets a little funky because we're going to reset. So I'm going to toggle push button 3, right click, and write that value. And again, it's kind of strange. What you'll actually see is push button 3 is on, the network is actually on, but look at light 2. Light 2 is off, because the whole point of the set and the reset in this case is writing a 0. And sure enough, it's writing a 0, which is turning off that address. Okay, that's fine. Let me go and turn that off. Let me set that off, and then I'm going to save and go offline. Let's log out, go offline, and move on. So the big difference I want to point out between the standard coil and the set and the reset. First of all, the standard coil actually has 2 jobs. The first job is, and everybody always remembers the first job. The first job is to turn on that address when the rung goes true, when the network goes true. But it's also got a secondary job, is to turn off that address when the rung goes false. That does not happen with our set and reset instructions. With the set and reset instructions, what you'll actually see is the set only writes a 1 when the rung is true. The reset, it'll write a 0 when the rung is true. So these only operate when the network in front of it is actually true. Okay, so that's a big difference between these instructions. Okay, so now with the set and the reset, what we can actually do is we can move on to our next type of instructions, which are let me pull this function block area down, and I'm going to actually pull in a function block called a rising edge and the falling edge detection. Let me drag this across, and I'm going to actually use that in the set instruction, the rising edge. And you know what? I'm going to make the falling edge as well. I'm going to put that in my reset network here. Now you'll notice this is the first time we've seen this. We're putting what's called a function block. Ladder logic does have function blocks, or what you could call function blocks. And the rising edge instruction is a function block. And essentially what's going to happen is when the rising edge of the network in front of the rising edge trigger goes true, it's going to turn on the output for 1 scan. All right, because we have a set, this set will turn on and will set the address. Now, this is the first time we've seen this. These function blocks, when you use a lot of the other blocks, you'll notice that it has to be the instance of the function block has to actually have its own tag. So you'll notice you can see the tag here. I went ahead and set that. I let it set that normally, and you'll notice that when I do the falling edge as well. So when I drag and drop this across, so here's another instance. This is my instance of a falling edge instruction, falling edge function block, and its job is when the falling edge in front of it goes, when we have a falling edge in front of the instruction, the wrong or network after it will actually be issued. So in this case, what we're going to see when we test this is when I turn on push button 2, the set will turn on. When I turn off push button 3, the reset will turn on. So let's try that. Let's download this. So I'm good there. Let me log in and log in with download. It's going to download. It's compiling for me again, and of course it does a download. I'm going to press the start and let's try it out. So my push button 2, if I double click, right click, and write the value, when this goes true, you'll notice the set turns on. And of course, if I was to turn this off and write all values off, the set stays on. So again, just be careful with this. You want to note that the network after the rising edge will turn on for one scan and then it turns off. So in most PLCs, this is called the rising edge or the falling edge. In an Al Bradley PLC, they call this a one-shot. So here, now let's go and do the push button 3 and let's see how the falling edge works. So I'm going to double click that and turn this true and right click and write all values. You'll notice that it hasn't issued the reset yet because this is a falling edge. So it's got to see the falling edge to actually trigger the single scan out. So let me now turn this off, right click and write all. You'll notice it turns it off. See that? So it's on the falling edge. So this has given us the ability to test both the rising edge and the falling edge of those instructions. Okay, so let me save this and go offline again, log out, and yeah, what else do we have? Well, I guess we got other instructions that we're going to look at in the next video. But suffice to say, we can look at a couple other. Now that we've seen this function block, let's actually go ahead and just drop down network below and start looking at some of these other ones. So we have an AND, what's called an AND or a Boolean AND instruction. If I drop that down, let's see what that does. Now you'll notice one thing you should notice, a lot of these instructions all the way across are going to have enables in the instruction. See that? That enable doesn't actually tell the instruction, it doesn't tell the instruction to operate its function, in this case an AND. What it's enabling the block so that it can process this I/O. So we can very often we can have a contact or something in front of it that will turn on and off the enable. But once the block is enabled, it'll perform this function. In this case, it's an AND. So an AND instruction, if you think back to your Boolean logic, whether it's in ladder logic or if it's in digital electronics, an AND of two inputs, they both have to be on for the output to turn on. We have ANDs. There's actually three input ANDs and ORs. So there's an OR instruction as well. Let me go and put one of those down. Put a rung down, a network down, and then I'm going to put a 2-input OR, and that'll do an OR function for me. Okay, so when the 2 inputs are true, or sorry, in the case of an OR, when one of those inputs are true, it will trigger the output. Either one of them has to be on. Either that one or that one will be on to turn on that output. Now, this is not an exclusive OR. This is saying whether it's this or that, and both of them could be on, and it will actually turn on the output. But if I right click and insert a network below, do one more, do the exclusive OR will do this or that, you can't have both of these on in that case. So this would be an exclusive function. Okay, so those are standard Boolean logic instructions that you would use. Now notice these do not have the instance above the instruction. They don't have that instance above there. So you don't need that in the and, or, exclusive or. Let me delete these. I'm highlighting the three of them. So I'm clicking this first one, holding the shift key down, and I'm going to highlight the third one, and it's going to highlight all three networks. Then I'm going to press delete, and it'll delete them for me. So all the standard Windows functions that you would see in any Windows program work here in Codesys. So cut, copy, paste, and shift and control, they all work. It's all standard Windows functions. Okay, let's just actually, before we go too far, let's just take a look at the AND with the three inputs and just see that. You can see, so again, this is an ANDing function, so all three of these would have to be on for the output to turn on. Okay, as opposed to right clicking and inserting a network below. What if I did the 3 OR? So in this case, any of these could be on, or any combination of these could be on to turn on that output. All right, so you could have the first and the third one on, you could have all three of them on, doesn't really matter. Any combination will turn on that output for you. Again, I'm going to highlight 4, shift, hold 5, and hit delete, and it's going to delete it for me. Okay, so we have some Boolean operators along here. We're going to talk about math in a separate video, and we're going to talk about timers and counters in a separate video as well. The reset, the rising edge, sorry, and the falling edge. We also have, if I right click, a little more complex. If I insert a network below and drag and drop the RS down, this is a set reset instruction as opposed to allow it to do its instance tag. This one compared to, let's say, the SR instruction. If I right click, insert a network below, and do the SR instruction, you'll notice it again will give it the instance name. And basically what you're going to see here is the set reset versus the reset set. It's going to say which is the dominant of the two, is basically what it's doing. Which is the dominant of the two inputs, whether it's the set or the reset input. Okay, so that's the set reset blocks. We see a lot of PLCs with the set reset function blocks included. Siemens has them, and a lot of other PLCs actually have these instructions. But again, I'm going to highlight and delete, and those will be deleted out. That's this video, the video at this point, just talking about some of the basic instructions, and of course doing our branching and so on. Our next video will be timers and counters. We'll talk about timers and counters and how they work, and show you some features and how to utilize them. If you like this video, please share it and like it, and so that so we can get more people viewing it, and I appreciate that. Anyways, hope to see you on the next video.